Hi, welcome to Senior Law Day. My name is Marjorie Greek. I am the owner of Pearl Fiduciary Services and the co-chair of the 2021 Senior Law Day. I guess a Senior Law Day is a slight misnomer this year because we are once again in the virtual format, and we are all hoping that next year it's in person. But because it is in a virtual format, today's recording or webinar on our YouTube channel. You can access that by going to the Boulder County Senior Law Day website. I will give you that website in a little bit, but just know that that's going to be there and available for you. You can also see last year's presentations at that same site. So take advantage of that opportunity. You've entered this webinar in mute mode. You'll probably remain that way unless the speaker would like you to unmute. If you need to do that, I don't know how it is on your computer, but on mine, Zoom tends to just go to a blank screen and you don't see the menu bar unless you touch your screen or mouse or something to kind of activate the screen so you can see the menu bar. On that menu bar, which on my screen is down at the bottom, on the far left-hand side, there's a microphone with a line through it. You touch that microphone and that will unmute you. The same if you have questions during the presentation, we're going to ask you to please put those questions into the Q&A or chat boxes. Again, it's in that menu bar, so if you need to access it, just touch your screen or your mouse and get that menu bar up so you can see that. Go ahead and type your questions into either one of those boxes, and the presenter will either get to it during the presentation or at the end, depending on how things are moving along. We have a number of upcoming webinars. There are 10 of them scheduled this year. Today is the very first one, so we're glad to have you with us for that. They run through October 7th, every Tuesday and Thursday from noon to 1 p.m. If you want to take a look at what the rest of the schedule is like and sign up for additional webinars, go to our website at bocoseniorlawday.org or bouldercountyseniorlawday.org. And again, we'll put those in the chat box for you so you don't need to write them down right now. And tell your friends and family and colleagues about it. We'd love to have more people participating in this and give them the opportunity to learn some of this information. We're very excited this year. Ask a Lawyer is back. So we'll be hosting 2 in-person Ask a Lawyer events where you can visit one-on-one with an attorney at no charge. There are going to be 2 of those this year, one in Longmont on Saturday, September 11th. It will run from 9 to 12 p.m. or 9 a.m. to 12 p.m. at the Longmont Senior Center, which is at 910 Longs Peak Avenue in Longmont. And the second one will be on September 25th at the Boulder Agewell Center at 909 Arapahoe Avenue in Boulder, again from 9 in the morning till noon. The one in Boulder, masks are required for attendees at that location. The way this works is you show up sooner rather than later. It is a first come, first serve basis. You'll meet with a volunteer who will chat with you for a little bit, determine the type of attorney that you should be speaking with, and then you'll get a chance to sit with them and talk about your issues with them directly. We will also have senior law handbooks available at those locations. In addition, if you can't make it to those events, our platinum level sponsor, one of them this year, the Boulder County Bar Association, provides a virtual free legal clinic. You can call in and be paired with an appropriate attorney for your issue. There are attorneys available for any number of different issues that you might have and looking for advice on. You can call the Boulder County Bar Association at 303-440-4758 or apply online at www.boulder-bar.org. Again, this will show up in the chat box, but that is another resource that will be available to you. And the Senior Law Day Handbooks, currently 2021's is not available yet, but you can still get the 2020 version by going to seniorlawhandbook.org, or again, drop by one of the Ask a Lawyer clinics and we'll have some of the 2020 handbooks available there. And we just could not do this without our sponsors. We're really grateful to have them and their support. This is brought to you for free, and the only reason we can do that is because of our sponsor support. This year, our platinum level sponsors are the Boulder County Bar Association, Pearl Fiduciary Services, and Fraser. Our gold sponsor is Jorgensen, Brownell, and Pepin. Hofgaard Law and VOK Financial are our silver sponsors, and the bronze sponsors are Kingsbury, Johnson & Love, and Friends of the Longmont Senior Services. You can go to our website and click on these and they'll bring you links to their websites so that you can learn more about these companies and what they do. I also want to thank the rest of the planning committee who have made this year's Senior Law Day possible. So Pete Rogers, Erica Corson, Deirdre Braverman, Maya Labrie, Allison Oates, and Susan Spalding. And I want to express a special thanks to my co-chair, who will be presenting today. Not only is she extremely intelligent, knowledgeable, and capable and hardworking, but Brett Landis is also the managing attorney of Boulder County Legal Services. She received her BA from Carleton College and her JD from the University of Oregon. Brett worked with a domestic violence clinic in Eugene, Oregon after graduation, and later worked for Legal Aid Services of Oregon in Klamath Falls. Brett also practiced family law with the law firm of Warren, Carlson Moore in Niwot, Colorado. She serves on the Access to Justice committees and is currently the president of the Boulder County Bar Association. Brett, thank you for all you do for Senior Law Day and beyond. We're really looking forward to your presentation today. Take it away, Brett.
Well, thank you. What a fantastic introduction. And I will just take a moment here and share my screen and again, just thank everyone for being here. I know it's not what we had hoped we would be doing. It was a webinar this year, but we are glad to be able to bring this information in this format. We're glad to be able to record these webinars, and here's looking forward to an in-person Senior Law Day in 2022. But today I am very excited to start out our 2021 Senior Law Day with how to pick a lawyer, tips and resources for trying to figure out the right attorney-client fit. I always think it's helpful to provide everyone with a little bit of a roadmap for where we're going to be going today. So today the goal is to cover figuring out when you're going to need to seek an attorney, what type of attorney you need to be looking for, and what to do when you can't afford attorney. I'll also talk a little bit about accessing the courts, because I think in the past year and a half that has become a little different than what we're used to. And I'll also talk about what to research before you meet with an attorney, what questions to ask in initial consultations, and ultimately, at the end of the day, how to decide whether or not to hire a particular attorney. Margie, thankfully, did most of my bio for me, but I always like to go over a little bit of why you should be listening to me about this issue. I am the current managing attorney for Boulder County Legal Services. I just celebrated my 5-year anniversary in this position, which is really, really personally exciting to me. But our office has a lot of interaction with other attorneys. We manage several pro bono attorneys and several attorneys on our contract panel. I do have some personal experience working in private practice as well. And before that, I had 6 years of legal aid experience in Oregon. As the former co-chair for the Availability of Legal Services Committee for our Bar Association and the current president for the Boulder County Bar Association, I know a lot about what different attorneys are in our community. I know a lot about what resources are available. So I hope that this serves as a useful background to know that I know something about what I'm talking about. So I always like to start off with this slide. Can I sue someone because I didn't win my lawsuit? The correct answer is yes. Anybody can sue anyone for anything, but do they need to? Is kind of the wiser question. It's really the crux of that question is, does someone actually have a legal problem versus another type of problem? A legal problem would be if you are arrested for a crime, or if you were a victim of a crime, if you are sued by someone else, or if you need something like a will or other estate planning documents. In current times, certainly getting an eviction notice would be a legal problem. Having to address custody of a child is going to be a legal problem. There's some problems that kind of sound like legal problems though, but aren't really. I always like this example that your spouse wore socks with sandals. I have talked to my husband about this many times. And no matter what I say, even when I preface it with, I'm a lawyer and you should not wear socks with sandals, he still won't listen to me. It's a crime against fashion, but it is not actually a crime. If someone is being rude or insulting to you, that's not really a legal problem in our world. If you can't find an apartment in Boulder County, I think anyone who's navigated our rental market can attest that it is a tough world out there. But that's not necessarily going to be a legal problem. It's a logistical problem. Or if someone is gossiping about you, unfortunately, that is everyone's right to gossip as much as they want within reason. But there's some murky territory there. I'd like to say it's just flat out, those are non-legal problems, but there are definitely some situations that cross the line. So murkier territory is if someone is rude and insulting to you to the point of it causing you physical pain from the stress, that certainly could become a legal problem. If someone can't pay their bills and a bill collector is calling all day and night, that is something where there could be a legal resolution to your case. Can't find suitable housing because of a prior eviction, that's where something becomes a legal problem. Or someone is gossiping about you and it's causing you monetary loss. That gets into that slander and libel realm, where if it's causing you an actual monetary loss, it may become a legal problem. I still cannot help with the socks and sandals though. Crimes against fashion are difficult to stop. The key question I like to ask here is whether or not someone has a legal problem. Could a judge make an order to fix the problem? Could a judge order money, or could the judge order someone to do something and the problem would be fixed? And I always like this cartoon. We should be in good shape provided the judge doesn't go all legal on us, because that's what judges are supposed to do, is go all legal on us. So next up, what type of lawyer do you need? I can echo, and I had a conversation actually with someone just this past Thursday where someone came to them and had a very serious problem, but she was absolutely the wrong type of lawyer to help out in that situation. And I know it can feel, sometimes you climb up to the top of the mountain only to be greeted by an attorney who says, I don't do tax law questions. You need to go 2 peaks over and start that climb again. So being able to figure out what type of lawyer or what general category you need is going to be a good place to save yourself some effort down the road. I've kind of broken this up into three really big categories of criminal cases, civil cases, and transactional cases. Because those are the three most general versions of this, although they all have sub versions too. But criminal cases are kind of the easy ones to identify. It's where a crime has been committed. It's the type of cases that you see on television, like in Law and Order or other shows. And in a criminal case, someone's role is going to be very clear. As a private party, your role would either be as a defendant, as a witness, or as the alleged crime victim. And in one of those three roles, if you're not one of those people, your case may not be a criminal case. And usually you're going to know which of those roles you have. Civil cases is probably the biggest, broadest category. There are a lot of different things. These cases can be cases where someone is suing for money. So any sort of collections case, any contract case, products liability cases, personal injury. These could also be cases involving injunctions where you're asking the court to force someone to do something. So cases involving property, eviction cases, cases where there's a dispute over the property line and you need the judge to figure out where that line is. And then the big kind of subcategory of civil cases that probably takes up the most court time are going to be the domestic relations cases. And these are cases involving families or very close relationships. So divorce, custody, protection orders. These cases really are some of the most difficult cases, but also sadly, some of the most common ones and the most common way a lot of people interact with the legal system. And then finally, we have what I kind of can call here transactional cases. And these are the cases that don't usually need to go to court. They're procedural cases. There are a lot of paperwork, but you really want a professional to do the paperwork so that it's done properly and done so that they're avoiding you having to go to court at some point. So these would be estate planning cases. That's probably the most common one that the average person is going to run into. But it can also be things like starting a business. You want to incorporate your business to protect yourself in the future and to make sure your business is well run. It can be things like mergers and acquisitions, which I will not talk about because I know enough mergers and acquisitions law to know I shouldn't talk about mergers and acquisitions. But these are the cases where the goal is to avoid court at all costs. And so you spend some money on the front end to make sure things are done properly. After you've figured out these broad categories, you're going to pinpoint smaller categories to try to figure out what exactly you need. So are you dealing with real estate? If you're dealing with real estate, do you need someone who is experienced in landlord-tenant law, or do you need someone who needs to help you with a property dispute over who actually owns the property? If you're looking at a civil case, are you looking at a family law case? In which case you're going to go to a family law attorney. Personal injury cases, are you going to look at a products liability case? Are you thinking that someone was negligent? Or is it a car accident where someone hit you? Being able to kind of suss out some of those fine details will get you a little closer to the right person. And then estate planning cases, estate planning attorneys, if you need to write your will, that's who you're going to go to. Kind of hidden within this is the really important piece of what if you can't afford an attorney? This, I feel like, is a all too common situation where you have the client sitting in the room with the attorney and the attorney says, my fees are quite high, and yet you say you have little money. I think I'm seeing a conflict of interest here. I want to give you just an idea of the scope of this problem. So in 2021, the federal poverty limit was $17,420 of annual income for a family of two, and $26,500 annual income for a family of four. That's really not a whole lot to live off of, particularly anyone who is local here in Boulder County and knows what our cost of living looks like. But that being said, I think it's really important to reflect on these second statistics that I've included. And I apologize, I don't have any more recent numbers than 2019, but these are from the census. And that found that 9.3% of people in Colorado are living under that poverty limit. And moreover, 10.7% of Boulder County residents are living in poverty. I know we like to think of poverty as being not something that we have a whole lot of in our community, or the impression of Boulder County is that we are a very wealthy community. And while we have some really high income families in our community, we also have more than the average number of people in Colorado living under that poverty line. So the ability to afford attorneys is a very real problem for over 10% of our community. In 2019, moreover, Boulder County seniors, it was estimated that seniors are going to make up about 33% of Boulder County residents. What that means is that the demand for a lot of these senior legal services are going to increase. It's estimated that about 7% of our seniors are living below the poverty limit. So as that number of seniors increases, we can expect that number living below the poverty limit to increase as well. 16% of Boulder County seniors were living at 185% of the federal poverty limit. So looking back at that base number of what that poverty limit looks like, 185% of that is a little bit more to live off of, but not all that much. It's also, I think, interesting to note that for a very large chunk of our seniors, Social Security was the majority of their income, and that without Social Security, it's estimated that about 35.8% of seniors nationally would be living in poverty. So as the price for legal services can continue to increase, as the practice of law becomes more expensive, we're also looking at these increases in a group of people who are relying on fixed incomes. And that becomes really challenging to meet legal needs without engaging in other non-private resources. Attorneys in general are just really expensive, to be honest. It's not a cheap profession. 2017, we had a median rate for an associate attorney at a law firm was about $205 an hour, and that's statewide. These are statistics that are put out by the Colorado Bar Association. $250 an hour was the average, or not the average, the median for a solo practitioner, and $295 an hour for a partner at a firm. In Boulder County, we're about $3 an hour higher than the state average at $253 an hour. And unfortunately, COVID-19 pandemic has made things worse. Many people have lost their jobs. I think a lot of seniors that I've talked to were supplementing their incomes with some part-time work, and a lot of that part-time work went away, and some of it became not safe for people to do. Many people who were unable to work due to being high risk. Most people over 65 would be in that category. And many people got sick and then were unable to work because they got sick. and added on to that the horrible, horrible stress that many, many people in our community lost their loved ones. The reality is affording an attorney is very difficult for seniors and low-income members of our community, and fixed incomes do contribute to this barrier. But we do have a lot of several low-cost and no-cost legal services in our community. We're very lucky that way. And I'm happy to say that many of these services continue to operate during COVID in one form or another. The first group I'm going to talk about are the public defenders. They represent low-income individuals who have been charged with a crime. They are a state-run organization. They are totally free, but someone would apply for their services once the case has been filed in court. And I am including their phone number right there. My organization, Boulder County Legal Services, is another no-cost option for low-income individuals. We are part of Colorado Legal Services, which is a statewide nonprofit organization. We represent and advise low-income clients in civil cases, and then we also have some specific funding to work with seniors in Boulder County, regardless of income, on housing cases, consumer cases, public benefits cases, any case involving protection from abuse, and some estate planning. We are free, but we do have some restrictions, but we're happy to help with a number of these civil cases that I have discussed. Our phone number is 303-449-7575. And like I said at the beginning, we do have a number of pro bono private attorneys who work with us. So if you think you might be eligible and have one of the issues that we deal with, please contact us. There are also some specific services for people who are survivors of abuse, and that includes elder abuse. In Boulder and most of the county, there is Safe House Progressive Alliance for Nonviolence, also known as SPAN. And they cover Boulder, Louisville, Lafayette, Erie, and Niwot. Their number is 303-449-8623. And the other domestic violence survivor organization is Safe Shelter of the St. Vrain in Longmont. And their number is 303-772-4422. So if someone is not eligible for our survivors as well, if someone is seeking to get away from abuse. For students, CU students, and I don't want to stereotype who could be a CU student, but there is a specific law firm on CU's campus called Student Legal Services. They handle a wide variety of cases. They are not free, but they are very low cost. And their restriction is just that someone has to be a student at CU. Their number is 303-492-6813. And as mentioned in our introduction slides, the Boulder County Bar Association has a virtual free legal clinic. This clinic actually got started directly after the shutdown happened in 2020. And I've heard from Kyle and Laura, our bar employees, that it has had a really good response. The idea is you would call the number or go to the website and fill out your application. And then you and the volunteer attorney would get matched and schedule a time for your consult. It's a really good service, and it offers a little bit more flexibility and avoids being around other people. And then again, as the introduction slides included, we have our Ask a Lawyer events that have been added back in this year. These are free drop-in legal clinics. I am so excited because they are the first in-person legal clinics since the shutdown to happen in Boulder County. So we're really hoping people take advantage of this, and people who haven't been able to make one of the virtual clinics happen, this is a great opportunity. So we also have some what I like to call low Bono services in Boulder County. These are programs that have some free services, but charge for some services. But when they do charge, it is well below the market rate for attorneys. And that would be Bridge to Justice, which is a Boulder organization. They are also doing some free services around eviction defense. And they will be, their attorneys have been at the courthouse in Boulder on the eviction return dates. So if you know anyone who is facing that, please encourage them to be proactive and reach out to Bridge to Justice. There's also Rocky Mountain Legal Center, which provides some civil legal services for a low cost rate. And they are located in Lafayette. We also have some significant self-help resources in our community. The courthouse itself employs 2 people. They're called self-help resource litigant coordinators, but the acronym comes out to being Sherlocks because they're helping people solve the mystery of the legal system. And then there's also a family law facilitator in the court. And these positions really are there. They can't provide legal advice, but they can provide legal information. They can also help people with forms and even just knowing where things are in the courthouse if you're looking for something. My organization, Colorado Legal Services, also has a website that has some pretty significant legal information, as well as some legal resources available. And it's called a debt bot. It's an AI that will talk to you about your consumer law issue. We had a demonstration of that a little while ago, and I have to say it's pretty impressive if you ever want to learn more about consumer law. So our website is coloradolegalservices.org. I'm going to take a quick just call to see if there are any questions that have popped up. I'm seeing the chat has some information, but it does look like that's all of our organizational information. Well, if there are no questions, I'm gonna continue, and I'll start talking about accessing the courts. This slide has one of my favorite things to have happened in the pandemic. I'm not sure if everyone got to see the news, but at a court in Texas, a hearing happened, and 2 of the attorneys were able to appear on video. But one of these attorneys who had been working from home, I think what happened was his child had been playing with his Zoom account, and he ended up as a cat for a whole hearing. And there is a good 10-minute video out there on the internet where you have this attorney in the image of a cat, an animated cat, clarifying that he is not a cat, he is an attorney, and he is appearing on this case and cannot figure out the Zoom. And I think this is just the perfect segue to recognize where things have changed, and accessing the courts has become a different beast than it was before COVID. Oh, here we go. So our court system has changed a little bit. There are some hearings that are being held virtually over WebEx. However, at this stage in the pandemic, there are also some in-person hearings that are being held at the courthouse, both the courthouse in Boulder and the one in Longmont. Currently, it's important to know all of our court buildings have a mask mandate for anyone who's going to be in the building. So going to court, looks a little different, whether you are going in person or over the internet. One of the most important things to do right now is if you do have a hearing, the court will issue you a hearing notice. And it's going to be really important to read that notice extra carefully, really with a fine eye to the details. The notice should tell you whether or not your hearing is going to be in person or over the internet. If you are not feeling safe or well enough to appear in person, please remember you can always request a virtual hearing. The court may have you do that in writing. If you are appearing virtually, though, you want to make sure you've tested the technology. Right now, our court system, and probably for the foreseeable future, is using a program called WebEx. If anyone has any school-age children that they've been monitoring remote school with, WebEx is the program that the school systems around here use as well. But if not, it's a good thing to download that before your hearing and just see if you can have a friend pair up with you to test it to make sure that you have enough bandwidth, because that is the most difficult part that I've run into. If you are appearing virtually, you want to be in a place with enough bandwidth. If you can be physically closer to your modem, that may be a better option than being all the way across your house. And you want to try to have as quiet of a place as possible. So if you have pets, maybe being a little further away from them. If you have small children running around, maybe asking someone to watch them in the other room to help keep things quiet. And finally, it's really important that you communicate with your attorney, or if you're representing yourself, communicate with the court clerks about this. It's a lot harder to rely on meeting people in the WebEx courtroom than it is to meet them in person at the courthouse 15 minutes early. And so it really becomes communicating ahead of time really pays off in dividends. So let's take another call to see if we have any questions that have come up. I'm just going to look at the chat real quick. Yeah, so Margie actually asked us a really good question. Besides the resources I've mentioned, are there other resources to find a lawyer in Boulder County in case one doesn't qualify as low income and wouldn't be eligible for those services? So really, my office, Boulder County Legal Services, and the public defenders, we are the primary ones that do any sort of means testing, which means you would have to be low income for our services. But some of the other resources I mentioned do not do means testing. So, or do them with much more generous income requirements. So Bridge to Justice and Rocky Mountain Legal Clinic, both of those are organizations. Let me go back to that. Rocky Mountain Legal Center, both of those are organizations that do not, that can take higher income folks than our office can. And certainly our Ask a Lawyer, we do not do any means testing for. It really is just a first come, first serve. A person who has $1 million a year in income would still be able to come in and ask their free question. And additionally, the Bar Association Free Legal Clinic is free and can be a good referral to an attorney who may take cases as a modest means, or may be willing to do what's called unbundled services, which are usually legal services that are going to be a little more taking like one piece at a time, but it usually helps people who are having to ration out funds, afford the legal services that are really going to be necessary to get their case done versus the pieces that they can do on their own. So I would definitely recommend that people contact that. And additionally, the Court Self-Help Resource Center, that is free for all of us. It is supported by our tax dollars. So there is no means testing there. Oh, and we have another question about the YouTube channel. So Boulder County Senior Law Day has a YouTube channel. This presentation will be available after we're done. And I might ask, I believe it's been posted in the chat, but Margie, would you repost the link to our YouTube channel in the chat? Right now it has all of last year's topics posted, but as we finish up our presentations, they'll get posted within a couple weeks. So a couple weeks from today, you should have access to that. And one more question. Yes, you're welcome. So moving on, let's talk about researching lawyers, because you would not want to just rely on the image of someone being a good lawyer by having a lot of books on their shelves to determine whether or not someone's going to be a good lawyer for your case. So there are a couple different ways that you can research who's out there. Word of mouth is probably the #1 way that most people find their lawyers. They'll talk to a friend who had a similar legal issue, or see who the people within their personal network know. And that is definitely a good way. It'll give you some very real-time and very practical knowledge of what an attorney is like to work with. I will give the one caveat that each and every single case is different. And so just because someone you know got a certain result with their attorney doesn't mean that you will get that same result. But it's important to think about that. Local bar associations are another really good way to research your attorney. Here in Boulder, the Boulder County Bar Association is our local bar association. They have a good sense of which attorneys are members and which are actively involved, which will do some of that modest means work, and which firms different attorneys are with. Our Boulder County Bar Association, and I'll go into this in a little bit of more detail, has a specific find a lawyer function. So you can actually even look online to get access to that and to figure out which attorneys are in the area. I also think it's important to look at disciplinary history. Here in Colorado, we are regulated as a profession by the Colorado Attorney Regulation Council, which is a department of the Colorado Supreme Court. And they keep track of the disciplinary history of every single attorney licensed in Colorado. And they make it fairly easy to look up. And so if you want to know whether or not your attorney or an attorney you're thinking about hiring has any disciplinary history, it's worth checking out. So just to show you briefly, this is the Boulder County Bar Association website after one has clicked on Find a Lawyer. And you have to accept a disclaimer of liability. But then you can go into this Find a Lawyer search and you can look through any variety of practice areas to really pinpoint the right type of attorney for you. And that's a really good place to start. And then you'll get a whole list of different attorneys who are doing work in that field. And I think for this search, I did wills, trusts, and probate, estate planning, and it brought up, as you can see, about 37 different firms, which is still quite a bit, but you can look at location, you can look at how big the firm is and try to figure out what's gonna be reasonable for you. So for disciplinary history, the ColoradoSupremeCourt.com is the website to go to. and there's a function that you go to for the attorney search. And for this one, I just put myself in. It's a little confusing because they have the attorney registration number if someone has that, or you can search by their name. But they make you do last name first. And I will not tell you how many times looking up opposing counsel that I don't know, I have gotten that in reverse order, and I've put in the first name in the last name section and the last name in the first name section. So just sharing that it's a weird thing to trip up on the way that they've programmed that. But once you put that in there, it's relatively simple, and you end up with a listing. There's my listing. And then you click on the blue last name to expand it and get a little more information. And you'll get contact phone number, what the firm they're with, the business address, and the admission date of the attorney. And then down at the bottom, you will see there's no public disciplinary history on file for this attorney within the state of Colorado. Hooray, no surprises for me there. But if there had been, there would have been a link to a little bit more detail about what that disciplinary history involved. So what about fees? We talked a little bit about what to do if someone cannot afford fees, but certainly there are going to be situations where someone can afford the fees and chooses to hire someone. How do you know you're paying a reasonable amount? I actually love this cartoon that I've got here. As your attorney, Roger, I feel it's my duty to charge you an enormous amount of money. And I kind of like the attorney in this cartoon because he is being very upfront about what this is going to cost. That this is something that is going to be very expensive. And you really don't want someone who's going to hide what their fee is. That would be problematic. And so attorneys' fees range pretty significantly due to many different factors. The biggest one is going to be the level of experience of the attorney, the location of the office, and the type of law. Certainly an attorney with 20 years worth of experience practicing in downtown Boulder doing business law is going to be much more expensive than an attorney with 3 years of experience doing family law in Erie. It's going to be a little different rate. It is important to note again that median rate for all private attorneys in all of Colorado was about $250 an hour, and in Boulder County it was about $253 an hour. Breaking down this a little bit further, for people who specialize in elder law practices, the median rate is a little more expensive. It's $300 an hour. For estate planning, it's about $250 an hour. And a good rate for a paralegal is going to be about $95 to $125 an hour. But certainly asking what an attorney's hourly rate is at the beginning of a representation is going to be really important, and getting a clear idea of what that rate looks like. There is more information available. As I stated earlier, this is part of an economic survey done by the Colorado Bar Association. I'm going to take a quick sip of water. So once you've actually done your research, you've asked how much it costs, it's important to go to an initial consultation with an attorney. Some attorneys will do free initial consultations, some will not. But I think it's important to go over what's reasonable to expect in an initial consultation. And again, this is another one where I like the way this attorney is behaving, because they're saying, I'm sorry, but refusing to use an Oxford comma isn't really grounds for a divorce. Because the attorney is trying to give the client a good idea of their case. Of course, this attorney is committing malpractice because Colorado is a no-fault divorce state. So you don't really need grounds. but you would not cite not using an Oxford comma in any event. So I always think it's helpful to get the most out of that initial consultation for the client to come prepared. Bring any documents that you think are going to be helpful with you. The attorney's office, if you end up retaining them, will probably want to make copies of those. I think it's also helpful to review your memory about things too. A lot of times, very specific dates, names of witnesses, money amounts, numbers, those you're going to want to be exact on those. Particularly dates, I think, are the things that in our day-to-day life, we don't think about that much. And they end up being really, really important to things like statutes of limitations. Can you even sue about this? Or how long has it been since you paid on a debt? Do you have a defense? So really, the more you can clarify what's the situation in your own mind, the better the attorney will be able to answer your questions. And you can expect that the attorney will have some additional questions for you about your case. It's really for them to get a good sense of what your case is and to give you a realistic idea about how your case will do. But I think at the end of the consult, you should expect to understand your case a little bit better and to understand some of the nuances in your case. I've got some questions that I think are really important for people to ask as well. As we just found out in the last section, fees are really important to ask about. Ask about that hourly rate, ask about the paralegal rate, ask if there is a retainer and how much that retainer is, because oftentimes that will be a deciding factor in whether or not you can afford this particular attorney. Time frame, you want to ask, what is a reasonable time frame? Is this something that's going to be an emergency hearing that gets dealt with within a month or two? Or is it something that's going to be a couple of years worth of litigation? When are things going to actually get done? Along those lines, are there any emergency issues that you need to take care of? Anything that needs to be done to preserve your case or to protect yourself? What needs to happen? And then a really good question that people should ask is, what are the weaknesses in my case? Just so you're not surprised when something comes up, because every case has strengths and weaknesses. Understanding what those are is gonna help you not be as frustrated with the system. So the ultimate question after that initial consult is, do you retain this attorney that you've met with? I also like this quote because you seem to know something about the law. I like that in an attorney. Your attorney should know something about the law. So again, you're going to look through, is the problem that you have, is that a legal problem? Does this particular lawyer practice the type of law that you need help with? Is this something that's within their area of expertise? Is the fee affordable or workable within your budget? If it's not, have you checked with the free and low Bono resources that we talked about earlier? Does the attorney have any troubling disciplinary history? Anything that makes you feel uncomfortable? And then finally, do you feel comfortable with the attorney in your gut? Is this going to be a good fit for you? So certainly all things that are worthwhile. And at the end of the day, that gut instinct is going to be the thing to tell you whether this is going to be a good relationship with this attorney or a difficult one. And remember, it's always okay to ask for more time to make your decision before you would retain an attorney. There are very few times where you would have to make a spot decision whether or not to have an attorney represent you. And those would be a situation where you are in an emergency hearing, like an eviction hearing or a protection order hearing, and you have to you have to go right away. But most of the time, you're going to have an opportunity to think on it if you want to think on it, and rest your brain, distract yourself a little, and then come back to the question with a less tired brain. It's also always okay to ask more questions about the fee structure. It's really important to understand that, so that you don't get into a situation where you're not able to keep your attorney as the case goes on. And it's also always okay to ask more questions about the attorney's background. If you have someone who specializes in business law and you're working on a divorce case and they say, well, I can handle this, don't worry about it. You can ask, how many divorce cases have you taken? Did you do any clinical work in law school? Ask those questions. I do have a number of important links that I'm listing here. I think what I may do is when I stop sharing my slides, I can post those all in the chat as well. But these are all really good resources and good ways to follow up with some additional information. And then I like to also include my contact information at the end of this. I am just going to end our presentation with the idea that I really hope all attorney-client relationships end up feeling like this, whether it's a low-cost attorney or one that you hire out of private practice, because when it goes well, you can really feel like you're both working on something worthwhile together. So with that being said, I'm going to post some of those links in the chat. Do we have any additional questions from this today?
I haven't seen any more come in, Brett.
Okay. Well, everyone, now is your chance. Anything I can answer, anything that wasn't clear?
Let's see, there's something in the chat there. No questions. Great, thank you very much.
Okay. Well, thank you. It's been a pleasure. This is always such an exciting time, and I'm sorry we're not in person, but here's hoping next year we'll get the chance to do this in person again.
Yes, and Brett, thank you very much for all that information. I wish I had known that 10 years ago. Hugely helpful at that point. Stumbling through was an option, but not the best. Let's just put it that way. And I just want to take one more moment. Let's see. How soon will this talk be posted on YouTube? I would say it'll be probably at least a week. Maybe a little bit more than that, 10 days, but we will certainly get it up. And you can just check back on our website and like I said, about a week or 10 days, and it will be ready. And once more, I just want to say thank you to our sponsors, to Boulder County Bar Association, Pro Fiduciary Services, Fraser, Jorgensen, Brownell and Pepin, Hofgard Law, Bach Financial, Kingsbury, Johnson and Love, and Friends of the Longmont Senior Services for all of their help and support in bringing this to you. And again, go check out what other webinars are going to be available during this series. And we look forward to seeing you again in one of those webinars. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you. Have a good day.
Okay. Bye-bye.